Welcome to Workstyle Stories, because life changes and every life is different. Work needs to respect that. And this week we're talking about the priorities in life. We're talking about well-being and escaping office politics. And I'm joined by Francois to discuss those things. Hello, Francois.
Oh.
Before we get into all of that, though, just for the benefit of our audience, could you just tell us a little bit about who you are, where you are, and what you do?
Sure. So I am a French person, but who lives in London for the past 20 years. I still have my accent, some like. And then I'm an IT person, so I am a consultant and trainer. So I tell people how to use technology for the best.
Okay, brilliant. And who do you live with, Francois? Do you have a partner, children? Yeah.
Yep. I'm married and we have a kid. So my husband is actually in technology as well. So he makes the big geeky house, and my kid is 10 and he's also really big into video games and all that.
Yeah, I can imagine. And probably a future technologist on our hands as well there, by the sounds of things. Brilliant. Okay. Well, thank you for that. So as you know, this series is all about work style, and we're talking about how work used to be and also kind of how it is now for you. So let's go back to, if you can, cast your mind back to when you were working in a sort of perhaps more traditional role, or in your early days as a freelancer, when perhaps work was a little bit more traditional. How did you find it, being in the line of work that you were in? I mean, did you find that you were sort of the expectation was to be in the office all day, and or what were the things that you particularly found that you didn't get on with in that work?
Yeah, so being in IT, it's especially this line of work. Even though we could for years, right? It's not new, but we could have managed things, server, etc., remotely. It's been a given that you still have to be in the office. So a few years ago, 10 years ago, even 5-10 years ago, servers were in the office, but it's very quickly been replaced. We still had to be in the office because colleagues, users need us. It was a bit challenging because in my case, right, I have to spend a good 60 to 80% of the time focusing on development, clearly, on learning new things as well, because it changes all the time. Yeah. So having someone walking in and saying, "Oh, can you help me with this? Can you fix this? It just never worked, right?"
Yeah, so not a very productive way to work in that particular line of work. We hear that a lot from developers. And I guess that kind of office environment, the kind of water cooler gatherings and the sort of associated bureaucracy, I suppose, office politics that comes with that. How does that, in your kind of line of work, and in I can imagine that that's not something that your sort of personality type, and I'm not casting aspersions about your personality type, but we've spoken before about this in the past. How did you find that and that kind of culture, I suppose, for you personally and for the work that you did?
Obviously, the answer is going to be difficult. Like, how did you find it difficult? Because I am someone who just needed to, for instance, take a lunch break. It might be a French thing to do, but take a lunch break is like getting out of the office for me and not talk about work so much. Obviously, in a corporate environment, in an office base, then it's maybe staying around the office, but quite talk to colleagues, and then we end up to talk about projects. So it's very difficult. And then leaving for, let's say I go for a walk or I go for a run even at lunchtime, and coming back and having colleagues that, when I mean colleague, is people in the building that sometimes I have nothing to do with, but they are kind of like looking at the time, and I'm like, yeah, but you don't know that yesterday I worked until 9 p.m.
Yeah.
So that was a bit tough.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I think we're on a bit of a mission to change people's thought process around that. You know, it's not about how visible you are or how many hours even that you're around for. It's what you're delivering that really matters. So how's that changed? How's your work life changed since then? And how have changes in your life kind of served as a catalyst for that?
So obviously, I had a few opportunities over the years to change this work style and to say that, well, actually, it's not really 9 to 5 anymore. It can be, in some cases, it can be 7 to 10 and then carry on like 5 to 9, or it can be a 9 to 5, but that's my own decision. So it's changed greatly because obviously I told you I have a family, I have a kid. So one thing that was very clear for me is to be there at school outings, like just walking to the park with the class and picking him up, etc. So that's something that I'm definitely doing. And my agenda is blocked every now and then to make sure that nobody can book a meeting at the time I'm going to be with my son. So yeah.
And has anything enabled you to sort of have more control like that? Because the way that you're talking about your work is kind of your work style, I suppose, now is quite of your own design. Whereas I think a lot of people in the tech space, if you're freelancing, typically you're contracting, and therefore actually your work looks more like a traditional employment job. Did anything happen to help you with that transition? Have you always wanted it to be more of your own design? How's that kind of come about?
So one thing that it's not even that I hide it, is my mobile number. Like people see it every now and then. It was on my signature, etc. But I realized that they don't need to call, because when they call, I might be in the middle of something, and therefore I would have to come back. So eventually, it turns out that yes, my customers, my partners, etc., will not actually use mobile phone directly. So nowadays with technology, easy, they will use text, WhatsApp, whatever. But very often it's more like I would send a link, so they book my time. So therefore, they have access to my calendar, and this happens like daily. That I have someone says, I have a new project, are you available on the 10th? And I'm like, yeah, well, just go and check, because I'm busy going to the garden.
Yeah, I think that's a great behavior and a great tip for people adopting remote working at the moment and into the future, is this interruptive communication just doesn't really work. So you have to schedule stuff, and so scheduling tools are really helpful for that. But it also means, as you say, you don't necessarily need a mobile phone number. You can trade links and talk asynchronously on messaging apps and that sort of thing. Yep. So I think that's great. And you're right, the behavior of just removing your phone number, for example, can be the thing that unlocks that ability for you to be more the master of your own time. And it sounds like you've got that cracked brilliantly. So good on you, Francois, for doing that. And thank you very much for sharing that tip and for sharing your story. What's your working day looking like? Typical working day looking like now, then, Francois? Just give us a quick.
So this morning I had an intense workshop. Then I had a nice break because I had to empty my head a bit. So lunch break, hold on. And then I'm going to have another meeting around in half hour, and then another workshop. But as you can see, between all this, I have actually some more like a personal well-being, I would say, breaks, so that I can actually relax and maybe have a coffee, but I don't. The other tip regarding technology, right, is that, yes, it is true, I have my mobile phone in my pocket all the time. Because if something is urgent, then I will see it, but as a notification, not as someone is calling. And therefore, it allows all of us to just postpone message, snooze it directly. And I think that really frees the mind and the stress level.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It sounds like you've got it well sorted, Francois. Good on you. Thanks very much for sharing your Workstyle story. Who'd have thought a Frenchman recommending that we all take a good break for lunch while we're working would also focus on
avoid the wine and you'll be fine.
Yeah, great stuff. Thanks very much, Francois. I'll speak to you again with the Workstyle story. See you next time. Bye-bye.